Hello friends. Today, I want to share a story that many of us can relate to. The feeling of being stuck, overwhelmed by the weight of expectations and doubts that cloud our hearts and minds. This story revolves around a young woman named Maya, who lives in a city that never seems to sleep, where the noise of ambition and the rush of life often drown out the quiet voice within. Through Maya's journey, you will come to understand how the pressure of the world can make us hesitate, and how the first step to change often begins with recognizing that hesitation itself. So take a moment, breathe deeply, and let us step into Maya's world together. Once, in a city bustling with endless movement and bright lights, lived Maya, a young woman with dreams as vast as the sky. Yet, despite her aspirations, Maya often found herself caught in a trap woven from her own fears and doubts. Every morning, as the city roared to life, Maya felt a quiet storm brewing inside her. She wanted to chase her dreams, to carve her own path, but the voice of uncertainty whispered relentlessly, "What if you fail? What if you're not good enough?" Each day, Maya's routine was the same. She would wake up, ready to take on the world, but as she faced the mirror, the reflection staring back seemed hesitant, unsure. She would brush off her doubts with a forced smile, and step into the bustling streets. But beneath her composed exterior was a heart weighed down by the fear of setbacks, and the pressure to succeed quickly. The city's pace was relentless, and Maya felt she was falling behind, even before she had truly begun. Maya's life was a constant cycle: dream, hesitate, doubt, and retreat. She dreamed of becoming an artist, of painting colors that could speak to souls. But every time she picked up her brush, the fear of imperfection stopped her. "What if my work isn't good enough?" she would ask herself. "What if I disappoint those who believe in me?" These questions echoed louder than her passion, leaving her frozen. Her friends often encouraged her, reminding her of her talent and the joy she found in creating. Yet, Maya's mind was a battleground where confidence and fear clashed daily. She watched others around her pursue their goals boldly, and the comparison only deepened her frustration. "Why can't I be like them?" she wondered. "Why do I always hesitate when I should be moving forward?" Maya's hesitation wasn't just about fear of failure. It was also about the pressure she felt to be perfect, to get things right the first time. The city whispered stories of instant success, of overnight triumphs, and Maya's heart ached with the weight of those expectations. Each small setback felt like a mountain, and each delay in progress seemed like proof that she wasn't meant to succeed. At night, when the city's noise softened into a distant hum, Maya would sit by her window, gazing at the stars hiding behind the city lights. She longed for a sign, a spark to ignite her courage. But more often than not, she felt trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, as if her dreams were just out of reach, suspended in a fog she couldn't clear. One afternoon, as Maya wandered through a small park tucked between towering buildings, she noticed a quiet corner where an elderly man tended to a small garden. The man moved with gentle care, his hands steady as he nurtured the plants. Maya paused, drawn by the peacefulness that surrounded him, a stark contrast to the city's constant rush. Curious but cautious, Maya hesitated before approaching. The man looked up and smiled warmly, inviting her closer with a nod. "Would you like to help me with this plant?" he asked softly. Maya glanced at the plant, a small, struggling sprout leaning toward the sun. "I don't know much about gardening," she admitted. "That's all right," the gardener replied kindly. "Sometimes all it takes is patience and care." Maya found herself kneeling beside him, her hands touching the soil, feeling a strange connection to this fragile life. As she watered the plant and gently cleared away the dry leaves, something inside her began to shift. The act of caring for something vulnerable awakened a quiet hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Days passed, and Maya returned to the garden, tending to the plant with increasing dedication. She noticed how it slowly grew stronger, its leaves reaching higher each day. The gardener's presence was steady but never rushed, and in his calm patience, Maya found a mirror for her own restless heart. Though the city outside continued its relentless pace, Maya's small sanctuary became a place where time seemed to slow. Here, she wasn't defined by the fear of failure or the pressure to be perfect. Instead, she learned that growth was a process, one that didn't demand immediate results but welcomed steady, gentle progress. Maya's hesitation didn't vanish overnight, But with each visit to the garden, she took a small step toward embracing her dreams without the heavy weight of doubt. She began to understand that setbacks were not signs of defeat, but part of the journey itself. The fear that once paralyzed her started to loosen its grip, replaced by a budding patience and quiet determination. So, dear friends, as we pause here in Maya's story, remember this feeling of standing at the edge of change, when doubts cloud the mind and the path forward seems unclear. Maya's journey teaches us that it's okay to hesitate, to feel overwhelmed, and to question ourselves. The first step to moving forward is often the hardest, but it begins with recognizing that hesitation is not the end, but a moment before growth. When we allow ourselves the grace of patience and the courage to keep trying, even in small ways, the path slowly reveals itself. Let us hold on to this pause, this quiet moment of reflection, for soon we will return to see how Maya's story unfolds, and how the smallest acts can spark the greatest transformations. Until then, keep your heart open and your spirit willing to grow. Hello friends. Let us continue the journey of Maya, the young woman who found herself hesitating at the crossroads of her dreams and fears. In our last moment together, Maya discovered a quiet garden amidst the city's frenzy, a place where a fragile plant and an elderly gardener offered her a new kind of hope. Today, we shall step deeper into this garden, where patience and care reveal truths about growth that Maya had yet to grasp. Through her experience, you too will glimpse the gentle power of persistence and the quiet magic that unfolds when we nurture what we hold dear. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let us walk alongside Maya once more. As the days passed, Maya found herself drawn back to the garden, almost as if it were calling her gently through the noise of the city. Each morning before the city's rush began, she would arrive to see the elderly gardener already at work, tending to the plants with a quiet devotion that seemed timeless. His hands, weathered by years of care, moved with a rhythm that spoke of deep understanding and patience. The plant Maya had helped tend was no longer the fragile sprout she first saw. Its leaves had begun to spread wider, reaching toward the sunlight with a quiet strength. Yet, it was clear that the plant's journey was far from complete. Some days, its leaves drooped under the weight of a harsh wind or the scorch of the sun, while on others, new buds appeared as promises of growth yet to come. One afternoon, as Maya carefully watered the soil, the gardener sat beside her on a worn bench beneath the shade of an old tree. "You've been very patient with this plant," he said kindly. "Tell me, what have you learned from it so far?" Maya thought for a moment, her fingers gently brushing a green leaf. "I've learned that growth isn't quick or easy," she replied softly. "Sometimes it's slow, and sometimes the plant looks like it's struggling, but it keeps going anyway." The gardener nodded, a gentle smile touching his lips. "Exactly. Many people expect success or change to happen all at once. But nature teaches us differently. Growth is a process, often hidden beneath the surface, unseen but steady. It requires care, patience, and faith that what we nurture will eventually flourish." Maya felt the truth of his words settle deep within her. She realized that in her own life, she had been rushing, wanting immediate results, and when they didn't come, she felt defeated. But here in the garden, she witnessed a different kind of time, one that moved with quiet persistence rather than hurried demands. Over the weeks, Maya's visits became a ritual. She learned to observe the plant's subtle changes. A new leaf here, a slight straightening of its stem there. Each small sign of progress filled her with a quiet joy, a reminder that growth was happening even when it wasn't obvious. The gardener shared stories of plants that had survived harsh winters, storms, and long droughts, only to bloom brilliantly in time. "Life is much the same," he said. "Sometimes we face seasons of difficulty, but with patience and care, we can endure and grow stronger." Maya began to see her own setbacks in a new light. The fears and doubts that once stopped her from painting no longer seemed like insurmountable walls but like the weather the plant faced, challenging but not final. She realized that just as the plant needed sunlight, water, and time, she too needed to nurture herself with kindness, perseverance, and trust in the process. One day, as Maya mixed colors on her palette, she found herself inspired by the garden's lessons. Instead of fearing imperfection, she approached her canvas with a gentle curiosity, allowing herself to explore and make mistakes without judgment. Each brushstroke became an act of patience, A small step toward growth rather than a demand for immediate success. The elderly gardener watched quietly, sensing the change within her. "Remember," he said one afternoon, "growth is rarely visible all at once. It is the accumulation of many small moments, each one building upon the last." Maya nodded, feeling a warm resolve taking root inside her. She understood now that setbacks were not the end of her story, but part of the unfolding journey. The garden had taught her that with steady care and faith, even the most fragile beginnings could become strong and vibrant. As the season shifted, the plant in the garden blossomed, its flowers opening slowly but surely. Maya stood beside it one morning, marveling at how something so small and seemingly fragile had transformed into a symbol of resilience and hope. In that moment she whispered to herself, "If this little plant can grow through storms and droughts, then so can I." So dear friends, as we pause here in Maya's story, remember the gentle lessons of the garden. Growth is not a race but a patient unfolding, a quiet dance between persistence and faith. Setbacks are not barriers but part of the natural rhythm of becoming. When we nurture ourselves and our dreams with care and patience, we create the conditions for flourishing. Hold this truth close as we prepare to follow Maya further on her path, where the seeds of hope she has planted begin to take root in ways she never imagined. Until then, keep tending your own garden of dreams, knowing that every small act of care is a step toward blossoming. Hello friends. Today we arrive at a pivotal moment in Maya's journey, a chapter where patience and persistence begin to transform not only her dreams but also her sense of self. From the quiet lessons of a garden, Maya steps into a new phase of courage and determination, discovering how small, steady efforts can light the path to success. As you listen, may you find inspiration to nurture your own goals, embracing the slow but sure rhythm of growth. So settle deeply, breathe gently, and walk alongside Maya as her story unfolds. With each passing day, Maya's confidence grew quietly but steadily. The lessons she learned in the garden, the power of patience, the acceptance of setbacks, and the faith in gradual progress, began to weave themselves into the fabric of her everyday life. No longer paralyzed by fear, she started to take small but meaningful steps toward her dreams. The first time she picked up her paintbrush after weeks of hesitation, her hands trembled slightly, but instead of retreating, Maya reminded herself of the plant's journey, the slow unfolding, the resilience through storms. She allowed herself to paint imperfectly, to make mistakes, and to explore colors without judgment. Each stroke became a celebration of effort rather than a test of perfection. As weeks turned into months, these small acts of courage accumulated. Maya enrolled in an art class, mingling with others who shared her passion. She shared her work openly, receiving feedback and encouragement. Though doubt still whispered occasionally, it no longer held her captive. Her family and friends noticed the change. The once hesitant young woman now spoke with a quiet assurance, her eyes bright with renewed purpose. Teachers praised her dedication, and classmates sought her out for collaboration. The walls of self-doubt that had confined her began to crumble, replaced by bridges of connection and support. Maya's journey was not without challenges. There were moments when progress seemed slow, when criticism stung, and when old fears resurfaced. But each time, she returned to the garden's wisdom, the understanding that setbacks are part of growth, not signs of failure. She learned to welcome difficulties as opportunities to deepen her resilience and refine her craft. One afternoon, standing in the garden where it all began, Maya reflected on how far she had come. The plant she had nurtured was now a vibrant bloom, its petals unfolding toward the sun. In that moment, Maya saw a reflection of herself, not as someone who had to be perfect from the start, but as someone who had grown through patience, persistence, and love. She whispered softly, "This garden taught me that every small effort matters. Success is not a sudden burst but a steady flame, kindled by persistence." Maya's story reminds us that transformation rarely happens overnight. It is the result of countless quiet moments, each one building upon the last. When we face our fears with determination and nurture our dreams with patience, we create the conditions for lasting change. So dear friends, as we close this chapter of Maya's journey, remember the power of steadfastness. Life's obstacles are not roadblocks but stepping stones, guiding us toward our true potential. Like Maya, Let us embrace patience and keep moving forward, trusting that every small step lights the way to our goals. May you carry this truth in your heart and continue to nurture your own dreams with gentle care and unwavering resolve.